So it's time to take care of this radiator mount situation, and rather than doing something kind of silly like using a hockey puck with the factory mount like this, I think I'm going to do something much simpler. And I've seen some guys online do something like this, which is take, well, this is just a cardboard template that I made, but slide it inside the little mount right here, bolt it up like that, and that gives us a non-solid mount that will fit really easily and be solidly mounted to the frame here without actually having to have any kind of weird contraption on top of the radiator. And if I make this little tab right here, I can bend it down to fit the fans on. So I think that's going to be what I'm going to do. And then same thing for the passenger side. Use a little tab insert like this, bolt it up, and then I can bolt my fan right to the little tab there. So let's get this thing going. And after a bunch of shaping and filing, we have this right here, which goes in just like that. So that'll fit perfectly. You know, I need to go through and reshape this side right here, but this little tab will bend down to match up with this. And then same goes on this side. This piece will just slide in here, and then I'll have to bend this tab down to meet up with this little bolt hole. And then I'll do some little final reshaping, and you know, the good thing is this will keep the radiator from being bolted solidly up top here, so it's not going to have any weird issues with it being, you know, firmly mounted. And if people talk about having the radiator expand when it gets too hot or whatever, and that causes problems if it's all mounted up solidly. So this will be good enough, and it'll keep it nice and loose. Now, if I do decide, I can also make this a little bit thinner and add some rubber around both of these little tabs, just to give it a little more insulation. But I have seen people online, like I said, doing this without any kinds of rubber insulation, and it seems to be all right. But so I'm going to bend these tabs down 90 degrees, then drill some holes, do some final reshaping, and that should be good to go. So that feels actually too solid. It's just gripping it completely solidly in there. So what I might need to do is narrow this piece down again so there's a bit more wiggle room. Because right now it's pretty much a solid mount, which, you know, not really great for the whole idea of this thing being able to be a little bit loose. So I guess I'm going to have to just narrow this thing down. But in the meantime, let's figure out how to get this guy mounted up. So I'm having a problem here with this little tab because this hole on the fan is so close to the radiator that I can't actually fit a bolt through there. So even though my tab lines up and everything lines up just fine, I can't actually get a bolt to go through the bottom of this thing and clear on the inside without actually hitting the radiator and rubbing against it. So I think what's going to make the most sense is cut the tab off, drill a little hole right here for zip ties, install this, and just zip tie this part to that part and just call it a day. And that's just the way it's going to have to be. Oh, the other issue is, right now there's plenty of play on this tab right here going into the radiator. But when I install it like this, the bent tab up here locks this in. It makes it so the radiator doesn't actually move at all. And it's just too solid of a mount. So I think just cut tabs off both of these guys, unfortunately, drill little holes, and then zip tie each corner of the fan to the hole. And that should be done. I will say it's not my prettiest work, but here it is in the daylight, and I think it's going to be all right. It's not bolted directly to the radiator, so there's a little bit of wiggle room here. A little bit. I could go through and trim this metal down a little bit and then add some rubber inside there to give it some extra, you know, dampening. But I have one zip tie here on the top for the fans, and then on this side, same thing. and it just seemed to make more sense than having that little flap hanging down there. So I think that's pretty good for now for the top part of the radiator. And again, I will monitor this, make sure that there's no weird wear happening or anything. And if there is, then I'll just trim these guys down and add some rubber. So up next I need to do the bottom of the fans to the radiator. For the bottom of the radiator, I decided to cut this little tab off here. And originally I had a zip tie going around the bottom part of the radiator to that tab to keep my fans in place. But the tab was actually getting in the way of this little piece of the radiator, and it was holding the entire fan shroud up like this and having a huge gap on the sides and the bottom. So with that tab cut off, I can push the entire shroud forward, which seals both sides, you know, left and right sides of the radiator. And I did the same thing on the driver's side all the way over there. So now I got to figure out how I'm going to mount this guy up solidly to the radiator. And I'll do that by making another aluminum plate right here that I'll bolt to these two bolt holes here on the radiator, and then this will just bolt right to the fan shroud right there. So that should keep the bottom part of the shroud solidly mounted to the radiator. So there we have a lower mount all in place. I think this is going to be a great sturdy way to keep the fans mounted securely to the bottom of the radiator. It's not moving anywhere, and it's nice and close now, unlike it used to be where it was like, you know, pulling away from the radiator. And also you can see where I trimmed down this part as well, so the whole thing sits flush now. So yeah, looking good. Alright guys, that's all for the episode. This was a shorter episode than normal, obviously, but I had to get these mounts figured out, and I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. I do wish I had a bit more time to put into the upper mounts to get those little tabs working instead of using zip ties, but I will probably revisit that in the future when I have a bit more time, and I'm realizing that I'm spending way too much time on the little details like that and not the bigger items like getting the engine started for the first time. So that'll be next episode, not starting the engine next episode, but working towards that, installing my switch panel. And I built this panel honestly a year ago. I think I made this in January last year, and it's been sitting in the car, not really installed the entire time from then till now. So this will be next episode for sure. I'm going to be installing a kill switch, this panel, and then wiring up my engine and probably a battery to the panel right here. And then the following episode will be rebuilding the front end with the headlights, getting my taillights and headlights wired up, and all that kind of fun stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope you guys are too. We're getting crazy close here to getting the engine started for the first time, so I'm really excited about that. So thank you all for watching. As always, stay tuned for more Fully Spooled. Lots more coming up. Check out my social media links, possibly like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.